Confession from a seventh son of a seventh son. I was born with a story already written on my skin. Before I ever spoke my first word, before I ever chose anything for myself, people were counting, whispering, smiling in that strange way people do when they think they found something rare. A seventh son of a seventh son, they said, like it was a blessing, like it was a crown, like it wasn't also a weight. I grew up hearing it the way other children hear their own names. It followed me through doorways, through church aisles, through family gatherings where relatives leaned close and looked at me as if they were searching for something glowing behind my eyes. They expected something. Luck, power, a gift, a miracle. I learned early that being special doesn't always feel special. Sometimes it feels like being watched from a distance, like a candle people keep waiting to see flicker into flame. My father would sit with me on the porch some evenings, his hands rough from work, his face carved by years of responsibility. He never spoke much about emotions, but when he looked at me, there was pride and worry tangled together. "You know what you are," he'd say quietly. "Not who, what." As if I were an inheritance, a prophecy, a tool meant for something bigger than myself. My mother was gentler, but even her tenderness carried an edge of fear. She would touch my hair when she thought I was asleep, as though she was trying to memorize me in case the world took me away. People came, sometimes. Strangers, friends of friends. Old women with sharp eyes and trembling hands. They'd ask questions my young mouth didn't know how to answer. Do you see things? Do you dream differently? Can you feel it? I wanted to say yes, because I could tell disappointment lived in their silence when I said no. But the truth is, I did feel something. Not magic, not visions, just a constant, aching awareness that I was never simply allowed to be ordinary. When you're born under a legend, you're never just a child. You're a symbol. A story people tell themselves to make the world feel more mysterious, more meaningful. There were moments when I thought maybe it was real. Once when I was 12, my brother fell from a ladder. Everyone shouted. My mother screamed. I remember running forward, my heart hammering like it wanted to break free of my ribs. I caught him. Or at least I was there when he landed, and somehow he wasn't as hurt as he should have been. For weeks afterward, my family looked at me differently, like the old stories were waking up. But I didn't feel like a miracle. I felt like a boy shaking with fear, crying in secret because I thought I was going to watch my brother die. That's what they never tell you about being chosen. Even when something goes right, it doesn't feel like glory. It feels like terror, and responsibility, and loneliness. As I grew older, the expectations didn't fade. They sharpened. People wanted answers from me. They wanted healing, comfort, direction. They wanted me to be proof that there was more in the world than cold chance and cruel randomness. And I wanted to give it to them. But I couldn't. I'm not a saint. I'm not a sorcerer. I am not a walking blessing. I'm a man who gets tired, who gets angry, who makes mistakes, who lies awake at night worrying about money and love and time slipping away. Do you know what it feels like to disappoint people who never even met you but believed in you anyway? It feels like breaking something sacred. Sometimes I wonder if the sadness I carry isn't my own, but everyone else's. Every hope poured into me like water into a cup that was never big enough. There were nights I prayed for it to stop. I just wanted to be a son, just a brother, just a person. Even now, grown, I still hear it. A seventh son of a seventh son. They say it like an opening line, like something extraordinary must follow. And all I can offer is this confession. I have spent my whole life feeling like a doorway people keep knocking on, expecting heaven behind it, when inside, It's just me, a quiet, ordinary soul, trying to live with the echo of a prophecy, trying to forgive myself for not being magic, trying to believe that being human is enough. But then the unexplainable things began, not in a grand, shining way, not with lightning or choirs of angels. No, it started small. The first time I was 17, my mother had been sick for days, her fever stubborn and cruel. The house smelled of herbs and worry. I sat beside her bed long after everyone else had gone to sleep, listening to her breathing. I don't know why I did it. I placed my hand on her forehead, and I felt something strange. Not heat, not skin, something like a hum beneath the surface, like the air before a storm. My mother sighed, deep, peaceful, and her fever broke by morning. My father called it relief. My aunt whispered, "It's him." I told myself it was coincidence. It had to be. But coincidence has a way of piling up until it becomes a mountain you can't ignore. After that, animals started finding me. A stray dog followed me home one winter night, limping and half-starved. It shouldn't have trusted anyone. It should have run. Instead, it walked straight to me as if it had been looking for me all along. When I knelt, it pressed its head into my hands and trembled. The next day, the limp was gone. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want their eyes on me again. Then came the dreams. They weren't prophecies, not like the stories. They were worse. I would dream of someone I knew standing in a certain place, wearing a certain expression, saying words I couldn't forget. And then days later, it would happen. Not exactly, but enough to leave my stomach hollow. Once I dreamed of my brother in a red truck, blood on his sleeve. 3 days later, he cut his arm badly at work, leaning against a red company vehicle while my mother wrapped the wound. I stared at him, shaking, while he laughed and asked me what was wrong. I couldn't answer. How do you confess to something like that? How do you say, "I saw this before it happened," without sounding insane? The air around me began to change too. Lights flickered when my emotions rose. Radios hissed into static when I walked past. A church bell rang once, alone, in the middle of the night, and the priest swore no one had touched the rope. People started noticing. They would glance at me when the candles sputtered. They would fall silent when the wind seemed to move against its own will. One evening, a neighbor came to our door carrying her little girl, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. The child's face was blue, her lips trembling. "She won't stop," the woman cried. "Please, someone said you, please." I didn't have time to refuse. I took the child in my arms, feeling her tiny body convulse with panic, and instinctively I whispered, "It's all right. It's all right." My hands shook and my heart pounded. And then, her breathing slowed. Her eyes focused. The sobbing stopped as if someone had turned off a switch. Her mother collapsed in gratitude. But I stood there frozen, staring down at my own hands. I hadn't done anything, and yet something had happened. That night I locked myself in my room and cried until my throat burned. Because it was real. Once I looked into a mirror and for a brief second, I swear I saw someone else looking back. Older. Sad. Knowing. As if the legend itself had a face. I began to fear myself. Not because I thought I was powerful, but because I thought I was a doorway. And I didn't know what might come through. People think being a seventh son of a seventh son means you're blessed. They don't understand what it is to feel the world lean toward you, heavy with expectation, heavy with mystery. They don't understand how lonely it is to carry something unexplainable inside your own skin. I still don't know what I am. A miracle? A mistake? A story people tell to comfort themselves? All I know is this. The more I try to be ordinary, the more the extraordinary finds me.